For the second part of our assigned topic PowerPoint, we'll be going over the aspects against no-kill shelters, whereas the first part of our presentation went and kind of looked at the aspects for no-kill shelters. Once again, this is group one, consisting of Nayeli, Sydney, and Kyle. This is for Animal Science 67, Animals and Society, and this was recorded on May 3rd of 2023. So the first slide we're going to go over is some more history and background information against no-kill shelters. Like I said, so the first part of our presentation kind of went over all the aspects and everything that went with for no-kill shelters. And on this, we're going to focus on the aspects against no-kill shelters. So some history and background on it. A big part of no-kill shelters is obviously euthanasia. Euthanasia is derived from Greek, in which the word actually means good death. Euthanasia is defined as being an act of either killing or permitting the death of a terminally ill or hopelessly injured individual or animal by using a humane, painless method for reasons of mercy. So euthanasia has actually been around for centuries. In ancient Egypt, it was not uncommon that at the owner's death, if his pet was still alive, the pet would be euthanized to be reunited with its owner. This was because so the pet could continue to be the deceased's companion in the afterlife. Euthanasia has drastically assisted in helping relieve animal care centers, shelters, and others of animals that cannot be cared for anymore. Rather than turning animal shelters and care homes into living nightmares, euthanasia is a humane and ethical alternative. In places with a no euthanasia policy and infections run rampant, animals live in filthy conditions, and food is scarce, which leads to sick animals suffering and dying without adequate medical care. So although it may seem somewhat, some may even say evil, to put down or kill an animal that is simply trying to live, a big part of being against the no-kill shelters is because it's simply a better alternative. Not saying that it is a good alternative, but it beats a lot of the alternatives as just talked about, rather than having these animals live in extremely poor conditions where there's simply so many animals in the shelter or the ranches that they just can't be taken care of anymore, at the point where they can't get enough food, and just to the point where it defeats their quality of life.
In this slide, we'll be talking about the unethical aspects of no-kill shelters. So no-kill shelters are usually at capacity, so they have to turn down animals. And this is because of the euthanasia. They can't kill all their animals, so they have to limit the amount of space that they have. So this limits the amount of types of cats or dogs that can be accepted. This results in more animals on the street, which means that there are more deaths in the streets. And then some animals can stay in shelters for months without getting adopted, causing depression, anxiety, and other behavioral issues. This creates a cycle of an animal being returned to the shelters when they are fostered or adopted because people are unaware of these emotional problems. Foster animals are likely to be sent to homes with bad conditions where they can be hurt and abused. And decisions like these are mainly made because they need to be able to fulfill that 90% placement rate. In this slide, we'll be going over the cultural and sociological importance against no-kill shelters. Although there are many animals that have the opportunity to be taken in to be sheltered, there are many that are rejected due to the limited capacity. As a result of these animals being rejected, they are put out on the streets or given to the wrong home. This creates a homeless pet problem in the United States, where there are 48 million cats and dogs that are homeless in the US, but only 5.4 million are in the shelters. And then on the side, you can see that basically sums up the information that I just stated. So the 42.6 million of the pets that are homeless are in danger of many things. They're more susceptible to illnesses and then can infect other animals, spreading the diseases and causing more deaths. Animals out on the streets can also cause road problems where they can get hurt when crossing streets. And then packs of stray dogs can be aggressive and hurt people. The 5.4 million unwanted pets in shelters still pose a problem. Due to how long they've stayed in shelters, they can have emotional and behavioral problems. This can be a problem when people are trying to adopt. 50% of people looking to adopt are worried about the history of the animal. Then 47% are worried about the emotional health of an animal.
Moving on to the current events that do not support no-kill shelters. Alachua County Animals Resources and Care have euthanized 168 animals in 2021, and they could have euthanized 140 more in 2022, and they still hold their no-kill title. Now, the goal of no-kill shelters is to only kill those animals that are extremely unhealthy, but this isn't always the case. No-kill shelters means that you are still euthanizing hundreds of dogs and cats a year, and this is usually due to the overpopulation problem. The no-kill shelters that exist are usually always at capacity, so they stop taking animals no matter what their condition is. When the number of animals become too much, they are considered inventory and they need to be moved. This causes shelters to no longer look into who they're giving dogs to, which can lead to giving dogs to abusers or even hoarding facilities. There are so many cases where the rescuers and the animals were found both sick and dead in the home. These were supposed to be the people who were saving these animals and putting them into a better home and to have a better life, but instead they made it much worse. There was also a hoarding facility in San Jose that caught fire and about 100 cats burned to death inside of their carriers. They were unable to escape the flames due to the plastic that was being melted down on top of them. Now, Alachua County has euthanized 87 dogs and 81 cats according to the report that they did in 2021. And the shelter only has about 110 kennels, and none of them are in the same condition. So some of the beds are in tiny spaces, while some of them have nothing except the 3 walls that surround them. Now, some shelters even try to increase the save rate by promoting animal abandonment. And there is this big sanctuary that issued a new release that urged people to leave homeless kittens on the streets rather than take them to a shelter. And not only are you telling people to leave these kittens in danger of infection, disease, starvation, being hit by cars, being attacked by dogs and other wildlife, and being abused by cruel people, they are also getting the chance to reproduce. Now, these homeless animals that survive will eventually reproduce, and this is only going to allow for more homeless animals that no one wants to take care of, let alone take them or even report them to the animal shelters. Now, going back to how these shelters only have so much kennels and so many of them are in horrible conditions, these small spaces for dogs are kind of like solitary confinement, and those dogs who don't even get the kennels are put into tiny, tiny wire crates. And it's not even just one of them. Usually it's multiple of them being shoved into one small crate. So these dogs that are in quote unquote solitary confinement can get aggressive, which can lead to euthanization. And kennel animals can become withdrawn, depressed, anxious, or even aggressive at some times. And those animals who get adopted usually get returned on multiple occasions, which creates this yo-yo effect. And this is traumatic and can make them even less adoptable. Now, despite all of the concern that Alachua County has gotten, the shelter has gotten report claims that they have killed 0 healthy animals, and since no one has intervened with them, the shelter's public record remains clean. Now, if you were to take a look at the pictures, on the left right here, we have the tiny wire crates that animals are put into when the kennels get too overpopulated. And as you can see, the dogs in these tiny wire crates, there's not just one of them, there's 4 of them because they don't even have enough of the little wire crates to allow each of them to get their own. And on the right, the same thing's happening. There wasn't cages, so these kittens had to be put in a, again, tiny wire crate because they didn't have enough to be able to have their own wire crate. And usually when animals are put into crates by themselves and they're small, they don't know each other, they're going to get aggressive, they're going to fight. It's just going to be horrible because they don't know one another and they're in a scary, unknown location.
So here's our informed opinion about this topic. There's a lot of information that has to be taken into account when making an informed opinion about a topic like this. And from the research we've gathered, we've decided that no-kill shelters aren't beneficial. Although euthanizing has drastically decreased the 90% placement rate, there are still problems that need to be addressed. This placement rate causes shelters to fill up quickly. When this happens, shelters first decide to cramp animals in small cages that Sydney showed previously. But when that isn't enough, shelters have to resort to rejecting animals, which leads to them being abandoned on the streets to fend for themselves. For both of these cases, the outcome of the animals aren't good. These unwanted pets develop psychological problems as well as emotional ones that can affect their behavior. When it's their turn to be chosen for adoption or fostering, this can be a setback and limit their chances of finding a home.
Here are our reference pages. Here is Nayeli's reference page. Here is Kyle's reference page. And lastly, here is Sydney's reference page.